Press.
I'll talk about something a little off topic while we let everyone join. We have our breast cancer awareness walks coming up in October, so make sure you're following along your local chapter, or you're welcome to come jump in on any of ours or start your own. Just let us know. We're going to be releasing some t-shirts, hats, and visors tomorrow for sale that will benefit breast cancer awareness, but that way we can find each other at walks in case we haven't met yet. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, National is going to put some upcoming events in the chat. We're not going to waste any time today as we let this panel share all the knowledge they've gained over the years. And I see that Ann Cohn is here, so I'm going to hand it over to her being our moderator. Thanks, Ann.
Great, great. Just in the nick of time. I'm loving the technology. So thank you. I am so excited to moderate this panel of trailblazers and just do a really deep dive on how they got where they are, where they started from. And so introductions, I think, Ashley, you had said that we've got the LinkedIn link for everyone's bio. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction. So we've got Susan DeMichael as President CEO of National Church Residences out of Columbus, Ohio. We've got Lisa Gomez, President and CEO of L&M Development Partners out of New York. We've got Diana McIver, DMA Companies, President and Founder out of Austin, Texas. And we've got Ann Soja, former President and co-founder of First Sterling Financial out of Great Neck, New York, and San Francisco, I guess I should add. And then finally, we've got Liz Ward, founder and president of Give Impact out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So welcome to you all, and thank you. So let me start just kind of on career journey, how you got to where you started and how that evolution was. So Susan, let me start with you. What was your first job, and then what was your transition? How did that happen to go into affordable housing if you didn't start in affordable housing?
Thanks so much. So my first job was waitress when I was 16 years old. But frankly, that prepared me for life because it really taught me the value of having options. And I knew that I wanted to pursue education. And so I am a lawyer by training, and I also love serving people. And so getting back to the waitress, I've always viewed myself as someone who could hopefully make an impact for others. And so even though I spent 21 years at a large law firm, I was so blessed to have been on the board of National Church Residences, and 7 years ago joined our organization full-time, have had a number of roles, but just took over the CEO role on July 1. That's been my journey.
Congratulations. I think that is so awesome. So starting a new chapter, and that's interesting on the transition from serving people and waitressing. And I've always felt like that's a job everyone needs to have to kind of prepare you for dealing with the public.
Absolutely. Probably leaning more on that now than anything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lisa, let's go to you. I mean, what was your first job, and what was your transition?
I have had so many jobs in my life, from waitressing to working in a hospital operating room where my mom was an OR nurse, to all kinds of things. My first real job after college, I moved to New York from Louisiana to work in advertising. And I was working, I thought it was the coolest thing. And I was working in Times Square for an ad agency that had some real estate clients. And I decided it was time for a change and moved to a very large commercial real estate developer, Silverstein Properties, where I fell in love with development. And I didn't have that as a background. So my entire career, I built the skills that I didn't have that brought me to where I am today. I think one of the most important skills that I learned in school was how to write well and how to ask really good questions. And those skills still serve me today.
You know, that's a great point, I think, on asking questions, because I know that women sometimes are afraid to appear like they don't know the answer. They don't have the ready-made answer. And I would say probably with all of you, you're not afraid to ask the questions to find out what's going on, and to transition. So,
Real estate's
yeah.
a field that favors the bold, and that's always career advice that I give is don't be afraid. I think it was Shirley Chisholm that said, if there isn't a seat at the table, bring your own folding chair. And I say that to women all the time. And I will keep saying it because I think if you are bold and assertive and put yourself out there, which does sort of run counter to the way many women, particularly my generation, were taught to be, nice. You'll do well in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. You got me on that one. One of my favorite quotes is fortune favors the bold. And every time I'm scared and think, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm like, fortune favors the bold, get out there. So, so Diana, all right. So what was your first job? I know it was probably Idaho, probably. And
It wasn't Idaho, thank you. My mother had a dancing studio. So at the age of 13, I was teaching tap dancing to 4 and 5-year-olds. And that experience has to rival being a waitress, because once you can teach tap dancing to a 4-year-old, you can do anything. You can, as I always say, then you can teach lawmakers about the tax credit program because you know how to break stuff into pieces. Following that, I had I grew up, I went to college, all that. But I have only done one resume in my entire life. Obviously, I didn't need it from my mother. But I went to work on Capitol Hill, initially for a senator as a caseworker. He retired. I went to work for the other senator in Idaho as a legislative assistant. He was chair, as Frank Church, he was chair of the Senate Committee on Aging. I became a housing person for the Senate Committee on Aging. That's how I got involved in housing for the elderly. From there, I went to the National Center for Housing Management, where I delivered training programs on affordable housing around the country, a lot of which don't even still exist today, the training programs, the programs themselves. And then, my co-trainer and I were in a bar in Dallas and said, oh, we're teaching people how to make all this money off these federal housing programs, Section 8 program, Farmers Home, whatever. And so we decided to quit our jobs and do it because, of course, you could get rich doing this. So we quit our jobs, thought we had a partner, which didn't materialize, opened offices in Dallas, submitted 3 Section 8 applications that year, and they all got sent back to us because the feds terminated the program. So plan B, we were fortunate to get some nonprofit clients like National Church Residences and Volunteers of America, and started doing 202 consulting and also some LIPR consulting. And then finally in 1998, I got involved in the tax credit program as a owner developer. So, it's been a very logical history. It makes me very pleased about what's happened in this industry. And I'm particularly impressed that there are so many women involved now, because those of us, Ann's going to know this, those of us who were the early part of the industry, you go to a conference and you could get in the women's room just like that. There was a line in the men's room, but the women's room was empty. So now when I go and I see a line in the women's room, I applaud.
Diana, that's a great perspective, isn't it? Thank goodness we're now waiting in the line at the restroom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we need a seat at the table too, but we're waiting in line at the restrooms. Yeah.
Yes. So that's interesting. I think it's kind of the common theme of building up and having your own abilities to know to get to the next step. So everything is kind of building on everything else. Ann Soja, so how did you start, and what was your transition into affordable housing if you didn't start in affordable housing?
No, actually, my undergraduate degree was in nursing. So my first job was as an emergency room nurse in a county medical center. And I made a very early transition into finance and investments. And I was very, very interested in the government subsidized affordable housing that you were talking about, Diana. And I loved the mission. I felt I could contribute on a much broader platform than in nursing. And I loved that the government was involved and was overseeing the properties, overseeing the programs. And that made me comfortable. Might not make everybody comfortable, but it made me comfortable. And so then we formed Sterling Securities, a broker-dealer, and First Sterling Financial, which was a syndication firm, so we could structure and sell affordable housing investments and then asset manage them for investors and over the compliance period. And that's how I get into it.
So what, looking back, I mean, that's a huge jump from nursing into housing and then starting that business. What gave you the gump to be able to say, you know what, I'm gonna do a deep dive in here. I'm gonna learn how to do this, and I'm gonna set up this shop?
Well, I was very driven. I was very ambitious, and I wanted to do good. And nursing wasn't where I wanted to do it. So, and I really had a very strong dad who really helped me believe that I could do whatever I wanted to do, and my mom too, of course. But I attribute a lot of my success to my family and to my ambition.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I do too. And I think someone told me, and I don't know how true this is, that really successful women in real estate always had a strong or had a strong father figure to say,
Yes. I think
you
that's
know,
true.
there is no difference, man or women, go do what you're going to go do. So, all right, Liz, how did you, I'm dying to hear more on Give Impact, because I know that is a transformational change. So talk about what your first job was.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of different things that have all built up to Give Impact becoming what it is. And it started, I was waiting to see if someone else was going to go back as far as 16, but I started in waitressing too. I worked at a place in Charlotte called Show Mars, a small family-run business. And that's where I realized how much I loved customer service. Like it was a place where you ordered at the counter, but then people could optionally leave tips on the table. And I realized really quickly that if you gave people really good service, they would be really generous. And so that was how I saved up all of my money from there and started my Roth IRA when I was in high school. Nerd alert, if you do that before you go to college. But I loved that. I loved being able to see small business there. And then I went to college to study business, and I worked in an accounting firm while I would part-time while I was doing college. And that's where my first foray into working with high net worth individuals. We were doing like individual financial planning. And so I just got exposure to how small businesses work and financials and learning the nitty-gritty behind that. And for a long time thought I wanted to go into financial advising, but the first job I got outside of college was it was with banking, and it was in a rotational development program. So within the finance division of Wachovia at the time. So we got to rotate every 6 months into different divisions. And so the benefit of that is it gave me kind of a top-down view from a large corporation to be able to see how all the different silos worked together. And I loved that. But I started my career in banking in 2007. And so that was an interesting time because then 2008, 2009 came and the world changed. And so the very beginning of my career, I experienced a downturn. And we didn't end up getting job placements. They offered us all packages coming out of that program because of the state of the economy. And a friend of mine that I had gone to school with had started with Wells Fargo in their commercial real estate division. And we had continued to have lunch together. And she was like, "Hey, Liz, like, you love numbers and you love working with people, you should be in commercial real estate. And I had no idea what commercial real estate was. I honestly, I mean, I had really no clue what the industry was. So I met with her boss, and that led to me getting a job in Wells Fargo's commercial real estate team in their wholesale bank. And so my clients were high net worth and private real estate developers in the Carolinas. And we were doing construction loans and mini perms for, you know, everything from multifamily to industrial office. And that's where I first got used to being the only female around the table, or one of the very few. I joke that all of my clients were like men in their 50s. There was no diversity. And as a young female in my 20s, I just felt like if I'm going to sit at this table, I need to earn some stripes. And so in Charlotte, they had launched a Master's of Science in Real Estate Development in our downtown area. And I decided to do that program at night to try and be able to speak the language of development with my clients. And that's where I learned about affordable housing. It was in a textbook. I had already been underwriting market rate multifamily deals. And then I realized there was this special tool out there called tax credits that helped restrict the incomes and finances. And I just became fascinated with that. And so after the 2-year program, although I thought I was going to stay in banking forever, I had started talking with a local nonprofit developer called the Housing Partnership. And I thought I was going to try and get on their board. And they ended up having a position open up to help grow their multifamily development team. And they asked me to come and join. And so I said, well, life is short and someone's actually going to pay me to go do good things. That sounds kind of awesome. So I jumped from corporate into nonprofit affordable housing development. And I was there for 5.5 years and I loved it. But that's where I learned about public-private partnership and the importance of the various roles that come to the table. And we had more and more people at the end of my tenure there before the pandemic saying, hey, I've got 2 million or I've got land but I know nothing about housing. How can I help? And I fell in love with being able to help shepherd those people through the process or helping educate them on opportunities to use their resources in affordable housing. And so when the pandemic happened, the world slowed down and it gave me clarity that that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a developer anymore. And I wanted to just go help people shepherd their resources and help develop partnerships and be kind of a third-party fiduciary guide. And so I quit my job in June of 2020 and launched Give Impact. I gave them 8 weeks notice and then I launched Give Impact. So there was time. So we're September 1st are having our 3-year anniversary of Give Impact. And our goal is to guide people getting into affordable housing and facilitating partnerships and new programs and participations and policies. And so we're trying to facilitate connections. So that's my journey.
That is so awesome. I think, and kudos to you, June 2020, quitting your job and starting a new entity. That is very impressive. So I guess that goes along with the next question that I've got for you guys. And it's a similar thread that's going through all on kind of collaboration and networking. How has that, I know, Susan, you mentioned that you were on the board and then tapped to do some different things. So how has collaboration and networking benefited your career?
Yeah, I mean, but for collaboration and networking, I never would have been part of National Church Residences. I think that, as women, it's easy for us to just focus on what we have to do because it's so much, from work to home to managing, all aspects of our lives and often other people's lives as caregivers. It's easy to just focus on what's at hand today and, not take the extra time for a coffee or getting to know new people. I think also some of us reach a point where I used to have a client who had a no new friends rule. She would always say, no more friends. I got enough of friends. And I think that, while that's easy to do, I think making yourself uncomfortable and always striving to put new relationships in your path will lead to new opportunities. And for me, it was really, saying yes to a board seat at National Church Residences, during a time when I was traveling internationally. I had 3 kids at home. I had no business probably joining a busy nonprofit board. But at the same time, I think you have to look at things holistically and take a long-term view, and just don't be afraid to say yes to new relationships. So I'm really grateful for that. And really have had an amazing network of friends and mentors that, today, are still part of my work family. And so just can't say enough about the power of relationships and networking.
Absolutely. And I think as women, we all, like you said, have so much on our plate. And I know for me as well, when I go out and mentor people or meet with people, like you said, for coffee and just kind of hear what they're doing, that feeds me. That feeds my ability to hear what's going on and to hopefully kind of bring someone up. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just paying it forward and not knowing, where a coffee or a, relationship is going to take you, not always looking for what you can get out of it immediately.
Yeah.
I think is something in the long term that just makes your career and your life so much richer.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So Lisa, how about for you, networking and collaboration, any impact?
So I think like the work that we do is intrinsically about collaboration. I like to say I'm the project manager in chief. The job hasn't changed, the titles have changed, but I'm a project manager. And I think the essence of being a project manager is getting people who don't necessarily have to listen to you to do what you need to do them to do to get to the end result that everybody needs to. So I think that's a skill that, sort of allows you to maybe put your ego to the side a little bit. I think that one of my passions in terms of networking is to help underrepresented people find a path in this space, because I think that at least in New York, real estate's a very sort of old line family relationship type connections type of business. And I think, I didn't have these connections. And I think when I can pay it forward, as you said, it's something that I can do to help people who don't have a dad or increasingly a mom in the field. I think one of the things that we've done is try to use our internship program to give somebody a foot in the door who might not otherwise have that foot in the door. It's not, your kid or my kid, although, I might ask you to take my kid one day. But I think that that sort of using the sort of twin pillars of collaboration and networking is something that, really is something that we all can benefit from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just, it goes full circle. So, so you get what you put in and you get back what you put in. So
my grandfather, who's one of the sources of all my best advice, was like, you see the same people on the way up as you do on the way down. So be nice.
Yep. Yep. Good advice. Very good advice. So Diana, let me switch it up with you for a minute. Talk about kind of decision making and how you deal with mistakes. How do you bounce back from that? We've all made them, and we've all kicked ourselves. So what does that represent for you?
It was a lesson I had to teach myself. I mentioned that I gave seminars around the country, and you guys are not going to believe this, and there were just 2 of us doing 2-day seminars. And so you were talking a lot. And I would find myself saying something, and I go back and question my grammar. Is like, did I use the right verb with that noun? And I would sit and beat myself up over using over making a mistake in grammar. And it's like, and then, one day someone came up and said, how do you know all this stuff? And then I realized nobody knows that I use, I mean, if they noticed it at the time, it went over them and they forgave me within 1 second, but I didn't forgive myself. So, I finally realized that nothing I was doing was going to cause anyone's death. It wasn't life or death. I'm not a surgeon. And so I think that just made decision making a lot easier for me because I could see the value in what I was doing. And we make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And with, my folks here with staff, I mean, I never get on anyone for a mistake. We discuss it. We discuss how it could have gone this way. It could have gone that way. But, we all make mistakes and you just can't beat yourself up. You just, go on, go forward. Don't make the same mistake twice. That's my rule. Just make it once, learn from it, and move on.
That's exactly. I think my dad used to tell me, you need to listen to me because you don't have time to make all the mistakes. So I'm going to tell you what I've made and then you can make your own. And so, yeah. And Soja, tell me kind of decision making. How do you make difficult decisions and bounce back from mistakes?
Well, I certainly believed in the scientific method of problem solving and making business decisions. I thought that was key to identify the issue, gather enough information, ask the right questions, and come up with some possible solutions, the pros and cons of each one of those solutions, and also think about unintended consequences that might happen. And then implement that decision, try it, test it, and analyze the results. And I think what we found is that usually, if you did a good job in the first couple steps, you were able just to tweak your response, improve it, and keep on enhancing the results. You very rarely had to go back to the table and start all over again. And I think that was an important discovery. I think with mistakes, what you need to do is take responsibility. You don't have to sugarcoat it. You don't have to over communicate about it, but you have to take responsibility. Tell the stakeholders how you're going to fix it, how long it's going to take, and what you're going to start with, and what experts you're going to bring in from either your corporation or outside if it's that big a problem. And give the timeline and report back to them as you move along that timeline. You need to build trust. And the way you do that is communicating and letting them know what's going on and how the process is going. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think that's so spot on. And I think it's all accountability that you say this was a mistake. It wasn't glossing over. And I find that women do that in commercial real estate and in affordable housing. I think women are the first to step up and say, you know what, that was a mistake. Here's what we're going to do, and get feedback and solicit opinions, and then say, okay, here's what we're doing. Here's how we're moving forward. So I think that's phenomenal. So Liz, how about for you? When you've come to a big decision, kind of weighing pros and cons, how do you do it and deal with mistakes?
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of what resonates with me with that question is around decision making, because being an entrepreneur with a growing company, I found myself quickly growing through different phases of the life cycle of the business and where we were trying to go. And I realized, like, I've never been an entrepreneur before. I've worked at large corporate, I've worked at nonprofit, but this is my own thing. And so I realized I needed to surround myself with other entrepreneurs, with other people who had done this before, and I had thankfully, lots of people who were willing to be sounding boards. And so a lot of that goes back to the networking and the benefit of talking to people, being willing to ask questions, and surrounding yourself with people who can help you so that you're not trying to go alone. But I'll also say that starting back in October, I hired an executive coach to help me. And we meet every other week and we talk for an hour, and he lets me talk about what I'm experiencing within the business and what challenges I'm facing in regards to, employees or contractors or growth or different, or with myself. Even like within my own marriage. I mean, Susan mentioned this, like we all have a lot we're taking care of. I've been married or been with my husband for 15 years and we have 2 kids, and life is busy and there's a lot to juggle. And so, it's easy to come to a point where you feel like you've got a lot of pressure on your shoulders and a lot of responsibility you've taken on, and you have to really work to balance that. So I think with that, the first is making sure you're in a good mental state to make decisions. So making sure you're taking care of yourself, whether that be through counseling or time off, or just making sure you're setting good boundaries, or medication, whatever it is you need to make sure that you are healthy is good. And then making sure you're surrounding yourself with resources, people you can bounce things off of. So a coach, a counselor, other mentors or folks like that has been really huge. And I completely agree with Anne in terms of the taking accountability. And that can be really hard. It can be scary to say, oh my gosh, I've got to admit that that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. And so just being authentic with people and, just talking with folks. And but I will say one of the things that my coach has been coaching me on is, and Anne said this, is not over communicating. Sometimes I feel compelled to just tell everybody about this mistake or beat it to death. But he's making me realize I don't need to do that. There's certain levels where I only talk with the immediate stakeholders, and also as something as simple as not starting every email with "I'm sorry," because our time is precious. And just because you didn't respond to someone within 24 hours does not mean you have to say, sorry for the delay. Nope, just respond. So little things like that. But having lots of help around you helps.
Man, that is a hard lesson, isn't it? To not beat yourself up, to not over apologize. And I have gotten where I'm really trying to take "I'm sorry" out of all my emails, out of my communication. Men they don't start that way. They don't say it. And that's just, something that we definitely need to work on. So Susan, let me ask you this on advice for young women coming in the industry. What would you say that they need to be prepared for? I know we've all kind of gotten to the point where, at what I used to call the 5 white men that you would be always meeting with or on the boards, or, it was always 5 to 7 white men in gray suits. What are the challenges now? What should they be prepared for?
Yeah, great question. I think that it's so important to use your voice in the room. And well, first of all, for those of us who lead meetings, I would say a challenge to us is to make sure that the same people aren't always speaking at the beginning and the end of the meeting, and also summarizing what other people say for them. But I think that for, those of us who are at a point in our career where we're just getting invited to the table, not apologizing for being there. I love that advice. Can't echo it anymore. I have told so many young women that I work with that very thing. You don't have to apologize for every question that you ask. Or the other thing I think that we do is sometimes we start off a question and we say, well, this is probably a stupid question, or when everyone else in the room has the same question. So I think just having the confidence to use your voice. And if you are in a position where you're leading a meeting, just watch the room and really see, are other women and often people of color, giving the opportunity to speak, or are they waiting to be invited to speak? And if you were once in that seat, can you now remember what that was like? And, maybe you end the meeting by saying, hey, Mary, we didn't hear from you on that perspective. Is there anything that we've missed, or is there anything you'd like to add? But just watching the room, and then also just taking the opportunity to speak up when you might think it's a silly question. Chances are someone else has it as well.
Yeah, I think that's exactly so important. I've gone where I've noticed, like you said, reading the room, reading the meeting, and you see women who are early in their career who are sitting at the table and glad to be at the table, but will not raise, aren't going to raise their hand, aren't going to ask questions. And after one or two of those sessions, I'll get them before and say, we're going to go into this meeting, we're going to talk about this. Do you want to bring this up? Or I'm going to ask you this question. And you can see the look of terror in their eyes. And it's like, all you need to say is, here's what I was thinking, or along these lines, and help them get that courage. And that has been a big game changer. And then you see them start to take the lead and not thinking, oh, I'm just going to be quiet and move on. So Lisa, how about for you? What advice would you give to women in this changing landscape?
I've seen the path change so much through my time in this field. First of all, nobody wears stockings anymore. And when I started in banking, like, women weren't even allowed to wear pants suits. It was all skirt suits. I suspect some of you saw the same. So I think that, getting more women is better. Getting more people of color is better. I am just something we've been working on in our company probably for 10 plus years. And I'm really happy to say that we're 50% women, and we are 5% people of color. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of. If I do nothing else, I know that I've contributed to making our company more representative. I think that go where people want your opinion. I've learned a bunch of things from taking the wrong jobs, and that is, not every place is going to be a fit. And I do think this is something younger people are good at. I have a nephew who stayed in a job 3 weeks and realized he had made a mistake and quit. And I was like, holy moly, I never would have done that, when I was your age of 22 or whatever. So I think, the path is clearer. The options are there more. I think it's about just sort of grabbing your seat at the table, asking the questions, and, sort of having the confidence in yourself to know that you're going to succeed, and building on the mistakes. Like, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. I mean, there's nobody who lived who didn't make mistakes. And as long as you grow from them, keep going. But you can do it. I think I'm proof that you can do it. You can come from a non-real estate family without a whole lot of experience, without going to a fancy school, and make your way in this field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Diana, what advice would you give?
Well, first of all, I agree totally with Lisa that never stay in a job where you're not happy. There's a perfect job for everyone out there somewhere. There's probably 10 perfect jobs or more, but do not stay in a job that makes you miserable. But I think my biggest advice, and I get back to, being the owner of a real estate development company, and I look around, and so few women out there actually are the owners of for-profit real estate development companies, and we need more of them. And so my advice is, don't be afraid to take a risk. You've got to be a risk taker in this industry. And granted, I took my biggest risk when I was probably 30, 31, 32 years old, started my own company. I I took the risk, a huge financial risk, but I really didn't have anything to lose, so it wasn't as much of a risk. But I do think that you can be wise about the risks you take, but you've got to get out there and take that kind of risk, whether it's starting a company, whether it's putting your financial guarantees on the line. We need more women risk takers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let go of the let go of the safety chain before you grab the next one.
Yeah.
And it's not going to kill you. We all think it's going to kill you. It's not going to kill you. Yeah. So
What doesn't
Anne,
kill you makes you stronger.
yes, absolutely. And I know that Ashley's going to pop that up. I don't know if you guys have been following the chats, but she has got some gems that are popping up that are just the highlights of all comments. So I love that. So Anne, really quickly, how about for you? What advice would you give?
I think the most important thing is to know yourself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, lead to your strengths, and get help with the weaknesses. And also know what you like to do, who you are. Do you love to be with people? Do you love to be project oriented? Where are you most comfortable? And I think that the other important thing in terms of knowing yourself is what you're willing to sacrifice to get there, because it will require sacrifice. At least that's been my experience. You can monitor it and you can manage it, but it requires dedication to get to these goals. The second piece of advice I would give to women is to, in addition to knowing yourself, is to figure out what you want. This is, as everybody's saying, a very complex industry with so many different opportunities to find something you love and do it. So basically, I think one of the best ways to do that is to try it. So if you're not entirely happy in what area of affordable housing you're in, try something. There's development, there's syndication, originations, tax work. There's so many different aspects of affordable housing. You can find something you love that you excel at, and you can make a difference in the world.
Absolutely. Great advice. Great advice. And I think sometimes for me, knowing what I didn't like was more important than what I did want. It's like, oh, that is not something that I want to do every day, once a month. I got to stop that. So
We may have lost Anne, but she'll be back. We have Faith.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Anne, are you back? Okay, until she appears, does anyone have any questions? I was just about to type. I feel like this was free therapy
Do you
and
want-
coaching all in one.
Ashley, do you want me to cover? I think I'm the last person to go on that
That'd be
question. Do you
awesome.
want me to?
Yes,
I'll do that
thank
while
you.
she, and then I think we'll hit the marker where we can open it up for questions for
Perfect.
everybody.
Thank you.
So I'm wondering if her phone died because I know she was having trouble with her camera. Hopefully she gets that worked out. But in terms of advice, I think one of the things that I have found most helpful over the last couple of years as I've been down this path is to seek alignment. And that encompasses a lot of things. And part of that is listening to your gut. I think we as females have a particular strength in that area where we can sense things. And I would just encourage everybody to listen to what your body is telling you. Listen to how you feel in a situation. If you feel that, I just like your alignment radar. If you feel like something's just off, pay attention to that. If something's off in a conversation with someone, it just means that it needs to be, there's something there that needs to be paid attention to and addressed. So ask questions, ask yourself questions, say, ask other people, are you okay? Or try and figure out what's causing that misalignment. And I think part of that is also, as I think back to making decisions, and if I'm really struggling with something, is asking myself, am I trying to make this decision out of fear or out of love? And so really trying to think about what you're wrestling with can really help identify what might give you the best path. And so I have found a lot of success with that. And I would just encourage everybody to seek, seek that alignment. And the other thing is, don't underestimate the benefit of finding financial freedom for yourself. So taking that seriously, planning for the long haul, thinking about what obligations you're taking on, on in terms of debt, thinking about your cash position, all of those things will enable you to have more freedom in making decisions in your career. I know a lot of people in my sphere who have the proverbial golden handcuffs. They're afraid to leave a job because they just make too much money. And so that's just something to always think about. The more you can create space for financial freedom for yourself, it'll enable you to make choices in your life, for career changes, or if you feel called to this entrepreneurial challenge, or opportunity. That was one thing that my husband and I did a lot of planning around. And so I was able to take the risk to start a business with low capital, and know, okay, if it fails, I'll just go do something else. But if it doesn't, then that's great. But it's enabled me to take a lot of decisions and pursue things that I felt in my gut were the right thing to do, but weren't necessarily money driven, that have led to successful outcomes. And so I would just encourage everybody to not underestimate the benefit of your own financial freedom.
Liz, that was great advice. I'm so glad we wrapped up on that. And I also wanted to highlight the fact that Liz did a very awesome thing there. She did not allow her advice to be skipped when she was about to be skipped. So that's a great example for women to stand up if it's your turn to speak, and go ahead and speak. So thank you, Liz, for getting me back on track. Does anyone have any questions that they would like? And I started to say earlier, this is like free coaching and therapy all in one, rolled up in a ball. So please don't be shy. No questions at all?
Yeah, I will go ahead and offer something, and that's just because I think there are a lot of women on this panel who are not just a single person in an office kind of situation. And so back to learning from mistakes. In my early career and when I was hiring my first employees, I kept trying to hire the next Diana McIver. I kept trying to hire clones of myself, which is a horrible mistake. What I finally learned is to surround myself with smart people with different perspectives on problems, different educational backgrounds. So, I really learned that by surrounding myself with diversity, I became a better company because, we'd collaborate on things, and it's really, really important to not just have one mindset, one point of view as you go into this in any business. And so I just say to those of you that are out there who are in hiring positions, learn from my mistake. Don't hire yourself.
That's
That's
true.
great advice. Go ahead, Liz.
I have another suggestion while we wait to see if other people have questions that pop up. But one thing that I've seen, and I've tried to coach some Maya on my team with, is and she's a young African-American female and is not used to being at some of the tables that we've had the opportunity to sit at. And I've tried to pour into her and recognize, like saying, you're worthy to sit at this table. You've got to go in knowing and telling yourself, I am worthy to be here. Because that's the energy. One, you deserve to tell yourself that, because you do deserve to be at the table, but you've got to tell yourself that. Don't wait for other people to tell you. Let that come from within. And then that exudes certain type of energy. And so you really do need to pour into yourself and say, I'm worthy. I am worthy to be here. My opinions are worthy. My feelings are valid. And so, yes, there's some finesse in how you communicate those things within an organization, but within yourself, tell yourself, I am worthy. And I think just with that is the power of mindset. If you expect positive things and if you expect certain things, you'll be surprised at what will come. If you're expecting the sky to fall or things to fall apart, that can influence things. So there's tremendous power in positive intentions, positive affirmations. Get an affirmation deck. I'll let everybody know, Maya and I've been joking about doing our own Give Impact affirmation deck for folks. If we do that, I'll launch it out to WAHN. But it's important to pour positivity into your daily mindset.
That's awesome. Our store is launching soon, Liz, so we have a platform for your affirmation cards when they're ready. We'll get it out there. Any other questions or advice that you want quickly before we wrap up?
I just want to build on something that Liz was saying. I think seek out mentors, seek out coaches. Anybody can be a coach. It doesn't have to be a coach. No offense to the coaches here. But I think, seeking people out who can be a sounding board, who can support you, and importantly, be the one who stands up for you when you're not in the room.
I love that advice.
Hey, I have a question. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kiara Riley. I work for Invest Atlanta. I am very new to multifamily, to the multifamily sector of affordable housing. And my question is, we always talk about seeking mentors, seeking mentorship, and I just want to know, what is the best way to approach women in the industry of, just how do you approach women? Because I'm a millennial. So my way of approaching people is always LinkedIn. I'm probably going to send each of you a message on LinkedIn after this call. But I just would like to know, what do you think is the best way to communicate and to approach, to ask someone to be your mentor?
Just ask. I think that's all you have to do is just ask, and don't have it necessarily be about asking for a job. You're just simply asking for advice, either about the industry or, who's out there, who else should I talk to? But yeah, just, can I come to your office? Can we have a cup of coffee? But just ask. I mean, I don't think I have ever turned anyone down who has asked to, have 30 minutes, an hour of my time. I mean, it just, you just ask. Don't be afraid, just ask.
Lisa, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. 100% agree. I think also come with questions. Don't just say, will you be my mentor? Come with what you want to get out of it. What a good experience looks like for you. I mean, everybody's busy. Most people I know, I mean, I take pretty much every LinkedIn or phone call chit chat from a student who asks, but if they don't come with questions, it's a very short call. Understand what you want, exposure to other people, ideas about what career paths look like, great places to start a career, great places to be mid-career. Also, most of you seem like you're in major cities. Look locally, don't underestimate folks. Every woman on this call is an amazing person, but look locally. Is there somebody at a Wells Fargo branch or at a law firm that you work with? Mentors can come from lots of different places.
Go ahead, Liz.
I have one last thing to add there, and that is ask for what you want. And I preface that because I was part of the local Crew Charlotte inaugural mentee program. I was first as a mentee and then I was a mentor. But when I entered that program, we had to fill out a questionnaire and say, what are we looking for? And I specifically said, I want to be paired with another working mom, someone who has been through their career and has had children, has had to navigate a lot of these challenges, because I wanted someone who was going down a similar path to me to be able to bounce ideas off and talk with them. And we ended up, what was just an informal 12-month meeting. She was with me the whole year before I made the decision to leave banking and go into nonprofit housing, and we still talk regularly. And so we've been talking for almost 10 years. And I'm just so glad that I was introspective about what I really wanted to get out of it. And that I went in, I don't know, it was just really just to develop a relationship. It wasn't really, like Susan said, I think earlier, you don't do it just to get something out of it. You go to develop a relationship with someone, but built on certain foundational elements. And so just pay attention to those kind of things and make sure you're aligning with what it is you actually want to get out of it. And don't be afraid to communicate that.
Oh, Ann Soja, go ahead.
Ashley, I was just going to say, I know a lot of you think about long-term mentorship, but I think one of the things you may want to pursue is the networking that you're already a part of, and the networking opportunities in your state, in the industry, because you can just talk to someone, make a connection with someone, and find out so much from a conversation and start to develop a relationship. The more you're out there, the more you're seen, the more credibility you have, the more you're on the map. So seize what you have here and replicate it, because sometimes it's hard to get a mentor to communicate with you over time, and you don't absolutely have to have it. Liz, I think it's wonderful that you have it, and it's helped you so much, and with your coach. But I think there's a lot of ways to get to the same end, and every experience that you have, whether it's working, networking, whatever, gives you a perspective, helps broaden who you are and what you can do. So seize these other opportunities as well.
And that is great advice. Thank you so much. And in respect of time, we're going to call the call off. We've got people traveling all over the country. I think there was a common theme here that you wrapped up so nicely, that a lot of this depends on you. And a mentorship, if you want a mentor, you have to show up ready and do the work. The mentor is already busy enough. So that's one of the things, and bring yourself to the table and feed yourself, I am worthy. So it comes back to you. Keep coming to our sessions, and we'll keep trying to bring the best of the best to you all. Thank you all so much for participating and joining our call. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure.